Do you, punk? What exactly does RCDD stand for? Registered Communications Distribution Designer. Just the expert you need to ensure your cable plant performs exactly as designed. The elite professional, knowledgeable, and experienced in leading-edge ICT design principles. Now, send the new guy to the truck for a bucket of dial tone and the cable stretchers, while you listen to an informative program on telecommunications.
Sorry about that. It helps when you turn on the camera. Oh, geez, it's one of those days. This is my first attempt at a live stream with multiple guests, so please be kind. Please be kind. Welcome to Thursday Night After Hours Live with Chuck Bowser, RCDD, where you get to ask your favorite RCDD questions about installation, certification, estimation, project management, career advice. But today's show is a little different. We have an RCDD roundtable discussion. But before we get started, we always start off with, what are you drinking? What are you drinking? So make sure you put in the chat box, what are you drinking? Chuck is drinking, again, Zevia soda like he always does, but this time I'm drinking cola Zevia soda. Right? I know I'm normally drinking root beer, but not today. So Teresa is in the house. Hello, Teresa. Welcome back. Good friend. And let's see who else is here. Luke's in the house. Rick is in the house. And also my good buddy, Todd is in the house. Woo, Todd. See, look what's back there, Todd. Yes. Now, before we get too much further along, the next thing I always do in every one of my After Hours live streams is I also do, what is the acronym challenge? The acronym challenge. And this one's kind of ironic tonight. So tonight's acronym challenge is RCDD. RCDD. The first person who tell me what RCDD is will get a complete set of stickers. Let's Talk Cabling Podcast stickers and Knowledge is Power stickers. So let us know, what does RCDD stand for? Waiting for someone to answer that. Could you be surprised how so many people don't really actually know that? There you go. Chris got it. I expected him to get it. Chris, you know what? You win. I'm going to send you the complete set of Let's Talk Cabling Podcast stickers, right? So tonight's show is about the RCDD. Now, a lot of people in the industry know what RCDD stands for, but I still get questions. What is a BICSI? What is RCDD and stuff like that? And let me put it this way. If you decide to pursue your RCDD, this is not like you're going to go to, the library and read a pamphlet and then, no, this is a commitment to get this certification. And I'll give you an example. I've run 2 study groups so far. The last study group that I did, I had 55 people sign up. 55 people. And by the time we got to the end of it, there were 5 people in that group. This is a study. So we're going to bring this into 2 parts. First, I'm going to bring on Christopher Hobbs from BICSI. We're going to talk for a few minutes about what is an RCDD and the benefits and stuff like that. And then we're going to bring on some study group members, and we're going to talk about, why did they pursue it and what do they find works helping them study. So let's bring on the first person, Mr. Christopher Hobbs. Chris, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Chuck. Thanks for having me again.
My pleasure. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, my friend. Now, I know what an RCDD is, but can you tell the people who are listening, what is an RCDD? Remember, we might have people listening in the future who may not know.
Well, my son, about 5 years ago, came up with the acronym Really Cool Dad Dude, because he didn't understand it. And it was actually during Father's Day, so it was quite humorous. But honestly, the RCDD is a registered communications distribution designer. And it's an individual who has demonstrated through a very comprehensive exam that they understand the fundamentals of ICT design, or information and communication technology design. So they understand the concepts of how to build out telecommunication spaces, from your equipment rooms to your telecommunications enclosures and your telecommunications rooms, to connecting those rooms together properly with the pathways for the backbone cabling, and then distributing out to horizontal work areas, the cable, so that the devices, your cameras, your computers, your printers, whatever devices that are out there that you may have, will actually function on that network. And then If you're looking at a larger facility in a campus type environment, connecting those different buildings together. And then there's specialized areas inside that as well for hospitals, AV, wireless, special design considerations. Really, an RCDD kind of knows everything, or supposed to know everything. And for those that have been studying for it, I'm not surprised by when you mentioned that you had 55 or so people start and you wound up with 5 at the end. It's a commitment, and it truly is a commitment. And I know I've said this before on other podcasts. Every credential that I've ever earned has paid me back 100-fold, and the RCDD definitely more so than probably any of the others.
Yep, absolutely. And when I say, they drop out, I'm not saying they're dropping out because the information's too hard. And it is hard information because it's the 14th edition TDMM is 2 manuals, completely packed. And I've read through it twice now with 2 different study groups. And every time I read through, I don't remember that from the last time. There's a lot of stuff in there, a lot of stuff to remember. So when I say people don't make it through, it's for various reasons: work commitments, family commitments, or they maybe realize and let's be honest, we start off with chapter 1, the principles of transmission. That's like one of the hardest chapters in the book right out of the gate, and that scares a lot of people away right out of the gate, right? So as an RCDD, do you guys finding that is it becoming? It's always, to me, it's always been popular. I always know people, but are you finding more and more application? What's the trend?
It's going up. What we're finding is, we've got the great silver tsunami that's happening. You look at you, me, others that are in the industry that have been around 25 plus years. A lot of people are retiring. People that I had that were my mentors, almost all of them have retired. Most of them retired 10, 15 years ago. So now we're getting to that point where within 10 to 15 years, we're probably going to be retiring. And when you start looking at that, we've got a lot more younger people that are actually coming in, but their learning is different than what it was for you and I. They don't learn or absorb information the way we did. I sat down, old school, highlighters, highlight the book, go through and study. And I spent 18 months studying for my RCDD before I took the exam. So, it was a commitment. It was a second job. And I can't tell you how many hours I spent getting it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because people younger than me, anybody who's 57 years or younger, you're younger than me. And a lot of people younger than me learn differently, just like you mentioned. I did it the old-fashioned way. I got the books, I read through them, and I did it within 6 to 8 months. But people nowadays, they learn differently. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just different. And you got to change how you deliver stuff in order so they can get that information and learn from that information, right? The RCDD, one of the questions I get asked quite often is people coming from the installer side to the design side, right? They want to go. I got this question just the other day. The guy had an installer fiber, and he asked me, should he go with the technician certification or go to the RCDD? My recommendation was get the technician first and then go to the RCDD, because that's kind of like a good precursor almost. It doesn't give you everything, but it gives you a lot more for than trying to jump from installer fiber to the RCD. What do you think on that, Chris?
I would tend to agree with that. It also depends on their job. Where is their career at? Are they being moved from a field person, a field personnel type position into the office? If they are, then they may need to make that jump. Or maybe, if they're going in as a project manager, the RTPM might be a better fit, and then use that to bridge into getting the RCDD. It started for me. I was in the field. Then I had my own company, and I realized I was going to need the RCDD. I started studying. Life happens as it does. I went to work overseas for 2 years, and then when I came back, I went to work for a company, and they're like, "You need to get your RCDD. You got to have it. We got to have it for all these projects that we're working on." So I'm like, "All right, well, I'll go get my RCDD." So I sat down and studied, and then wound up getting it. But it takes time, and it's not something that it's watching a 30-second YouTube video or something on TikTok that you're going to have to. And I think that's where the real big stumbling block that a lot of people have. So stepping into it with an easier credential test to take or certification test like the 350 will get you probably a better idea of what you're going to move into when you start looking at getting the RCDD.
Yeah, and the thing that the 350 class also does is it for a lot of people like me, when I took my RCD test back in 1999, 98, something like that, I had not really taken a test in like 20 years because I've been out of high school for a long time. So that 350 kind of gets you in that mindset of taking tests again, right? Because that's part of the thing there. One thing is financial, right? I'm sure BICSI has research on this. Does a person with an RCDD make more money than somebody who doesn't have an RCDD?
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, cabling installation and maintenance. They did a webinar last month, I believe, and it was about their annual salary survey that they do. And in that survey, people who have credentials make more money than those who don't. It shows that you have a base level of knowledge. It weeds out individuals that don't have the credential or the certification, and it opens doors. That's really what it's for. It's there to open doors.
Teresa, I know really well. Never met her in person, but
I have.
Yeah. And I just this kind of brings home the comment we were just talking about, right? She's been in BICSI for 25 years. She's a certified trainer. I'm telling you, she knows a lot of good stuff.
Oh yes.
And that RCD test scares her.
Well, don't be scared of the test. Look, I always tell people, if I can pass the test, anybody can pass the test. The thing is, you've got to study. You've got to have a plan. That's with everything. You need to have a plan. If you can go through and you can create a plan of how you're going to study, how long you're going to take to study, and then stick to the plan, then you'll be successful. And I always tell people, if you don't pass on the first time, don't take it as an indictment of yourself that you're not good enough to pass the test. You can pass a test. What that does is it gives you the opportunity to see where your weak areas are and then study for them. Now, that being said, I had a gentleman that I was mentoring for a while, and he was not successful the first time. So he went back and he only studied the areas that he was weak in. And when he went back and took the test the second time, guess where he was not successful at?
The other areas.
So you got to make sure you keep that studying. And to be honest, I've worked with a lot of people, and if you start a plan, you need to stick with it. One of the things that I've seen happen is people will study and life happens. It happened to me. That's why it took 18 months for me to take my test. I was planning on doing it in 12 to 13, but life event happened and it pushed it out by another 6 months. So when you look at it, if you stop studying for more than 30 days, you might as well start over again, because you've lost that study habit. You've lost that information. It's like exercise. You're exercising your brain instead of your body.
So did you pass on your first attempt?
I did.
I don't like you anymore.
Hey, don't worry. I did not pass my DC on the first attempt.
Oh, okay.
That's the second hardest test BICSI has. So
yeah. It took me 2 times to pass my RCDD. So I hope I say this name correctly. Gianfranco wants to know, what is a 350? He's talking about the class.
So the 350 that I think Teresa had mentioned earlier, that's the TE 350 class. That's the technician class. So if you look at BICSI, the nice thing about BICSI is we actually have an entire career path for individuals that are going to come right out of high school and they want to move into the ICT field. We've got the installer 1, we've got the installer 2 copper, the installer 2 fiber, the technician, which the TE 350 class is the class that backs that up. And then we've got that's kind of the end of the installation program. And then when we look at moving up, the next natural step typically is in project management. Not necessarily. Some people may go in design. Some people may be in data centers. Some people may be working solely outside plant. But if you step into the project management role, a lot of times what people will find is they're doing design work because the customer requirements aren't complete. The customer doesn't know what they want. You're going out and visiting these customers, and you're having to design telecommunications infrastructure, your ICT infrastructure. So when you start doing that, you realize, hey, I'm doing design work. I might as well go get my RCDD now, because now I'm actually, qualified or meet the qualifications to do that. Start doing design work.
Right. So 2 more questions, and I'm going to bring in my study group partners.
Sure.
The first question I have for you, I know probably the last 2 or 3 times that people, because I get questions about RCDD all the time because they know I run study groups. And the last 2 or 3 times people said that they seemed that when they took their test, that the majority of the test was on project management. Is it geared towards project, or is it broken up over the whole entire book?
So the way that the test works, if you go and you download the RCDD handbook, and I actually have it open here on my screen in case there were any questions. If individuals will go to page, I think it's 11. Let me look here real quick.
Yeah, it's page 11.
Yep. Starting on page 11. That is how the test is broken up. So if you look at defined scope of ICT design, there are 5 bullet points listed underneath there. Now, those bullet points are going to be spread through the entire TDMM. So that's why having a digital copy is kind of nice, because you can go through and you can copy those off. You can do a search for them and you can find where they're at. So 10% of the exam is going to come from defined scope for ICT design. 66% is going to come from design your ICT solutions. Then 9% is going to come from the bid tender process. Then 15% is going to come from the installation process. And then that's going to equal your 100% for your exam. So the tests are random, the questions, and they're pulled from a pool of questions. So they have exam writers that come in and they're told, okay, here is this particular area with these 5 items. You need to go into the TDMM. You need to find the location of where the answer is located, and then you need to write questions to that answer. And they'll come up with X number of questions for the bank, and then those get put into the test pool. And when you get your test, you go sit down at your Pearson View, or you take it at your house through OnView, whatever the case may be. You're going to get a random selection of those questions based on that 10% number. Now, that's not to say you're exactly going to get 10 questions. That's a 100-question test. You might get 9, you might get 11. So there's a little bit of variation between that, but it gives you an idea of where you really need to concentrate your study. So for someone that's looking at taking the test, design ICT solutions, that's over half the exam. And then your support your ICT installation processes is 15, and then 10 is going to be your scope of your ICT design. So, those are the areas that you need to focus on. And then you got your 9% for the bid tender process.
Very cool. One other question, and this one comes from the chat box. It's a really long one, so I'm going to boil it down. It's from Rick, and Rick's 21 years old, and he took over his company from his dad. And he wants to take his RCDD test, but he doesn't currently have enough, because, when you apply for the RCD test, you have to have a certain amount of documental experience in the background. And He wants to know, does BICSI ever make an exception, or is it on a case-by-case when it comes to get through the application process?
So there are more options now. So if you go turn to page 8 in the RCDD handbook. So option 1 is you've got to have 2 years of verifiable full-time work experience in ICT design and have a current BICSI certification, such as a BICSI Tech, RTPM, DC, or an OSP. Option 2 is that you have to have 2 years of verifiable full-time equivalent work experience in ICT design and completions of 2 years of higher education coursework in ICT. They can include things like STEM or trade school, 2-year degree, ICT and industry-related programs, apprenticeships or certifications, or military training. And then the last one is having 5 years of ICT verifiable, experience in the ICT design. So if he's 21 and he's got the experience, if he's been working for his dad, I would imagine that Rick may have been working for his dad. There's a lot of ICT design experience. If he laid out telecommunication spaces as a technician in the field, then that counts as ICT design. So you really got to sit down and think about it and then fill the application out. I will tell you, though, that to maintain the efficacy of our programs, exceptions are never made. I mean,
Thank you.
We've actually, it used to be you had to have 5 years of experience and all these other things. They've actually added now 3 options for individuals. So they've expanded out the options, but they've maintained the efficacy of our program because the other 2 options require experience and training in the field.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because I've had my RCD credential, like I said, for a long time. And if you were to all of a sudden say, well, we changed our minds and you only need 6 months experience, I'd be like, wait a minute, I had to have 5 years, So I was glad to hear you say that. So let's go ahead and bring in some of my study group members. And I'd love if you'd hang around. We're just going to ask some questions about study, because you studied too, right?
Oh yeah.
So
Actually, there's a question that popped up on here,
Oh.
and I'd like to answer that. And it's about
Sure.
the passing grade and the format change.
Absolutely, I didn't see
The format has changed in the past 10 years. So originally it was a 200 something question test that you had to take, and it was basically a knowledge dump. The test has changed. It's 100 questions now, and it's more scenario-based type questions. The other thing that's changed is there is no published passing grade for that. One of the things that BICSI does, so everybody gets hung up on the passing grade or how many people have passed the test. That to me is not a good number because we don't know how long people study. We don't know what tools they use to study. So having a passing, the number of people passed, all that tells you is X number of people took it, Y number of people passed it. That doesn't really mean anything. What's important is not worry about what other people are doing, but worry about yourself and how you have your study plan, develop the study plan and work that plan. The passing grade is evaluated on a regular basis, much like other organizations that have credentialing programs do. We actually bring in Rcdds and they take the test and they make a determination of where the pass score should be at.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, actually, I've scoured that document, and it does not tell you what the passing grade is.
It does not.
It does.
I don't know what the passing grade is. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I just never want to take it again.
No, me neither. Me neither. I told my wife, because I ride a motorcycle, and I told my wife, I said, look, if I ever happen to crash my motorcycle, I'm in a hospital in coma, keep paying my dues until you bury me. Because if I come out of that coma, I don't want to take that test again.
Yeah, my wife knows if I die to renew me one more time. So just in case.
Exactly. So let's bring on my study partners. First is Jeff Bjorklund, Hussein Habib, and Carlos Gallegos. These are all gentlemen that I've been going through the study course with. I think I got everybody. Yep, I do. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing tonight?
Doing good.
Good. How
How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah, we just finished a 24-week study group, Chris. Last night, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
And the last one, I did a 100-question test. Again, I tell them this all the time. I don't know the questions on the test. I don't even pretend these represent the questions on the test. I said, this is just to help you gauge whether you've absorbed that information. And we went through all 100 questions last night, and they rocked it, man. They rocked it. So gentlemen, I'll let you guys pick whoever wants to answer first. What made you decide to pursue your RCDD? Don't be shy. Jeff, you go first.
I can go first. Yeah. So my employer requires, with the position that I'm in, requires that that I have it. So I've been at my job for about 13 years in the IT industry. Recently moved from the networking team to the infrastructure team, and as part of that, now I need to have my RCDD. So it's been something I've been looking at for a few years, kind of planning this move hopefully in the future. But now that I have it, now I need to buckle down and get it. So I happened to kind of stumble across Chuck and his Let's Talk Cabling podcast about a year ago, and kind of started watching some of those, and was lucky enough to get hooked up with this crew for the study group. So.
Hussein, what made you decide to pursue your RCDD?
It was you. Like I watched some of your videos, training videos, and it shows in your signature, you know what it was. So when I looked at it, I kind of searched it out, and I looked at the content. I looked over to the contractor, state certified. And when I looked at what it offers, very good content. And then it's like, it became an idea and became a goal, like I find it very credible to have it, especially, if you own a company, you deal with the clients, definitely something you have. And I see like everybody's pushing for it now. And I also get that require RCDD to have it. So, and also municipalities for approvals, things like that. It's become a requirement. Weeks ago, so they won, and they actually looked at it. It's still, they're not familiar too much with it. I got approval. So that's another goal for me to kind of.
Carlos, what made you decide to pursue it?
Just continuing my professional development. I have a physics degree with engineering, and I'm in the transportation industry. And I work in a lot of stations, rail, with a lot of comm elements like fiber optics. And we're coming out of the phase where we're out in front of the customer, where everything's already designed. We're moving over into the design phase, and it's something that's going to help me out with designing systems in my industry. And yeah, everything that I read in the RCDD manual and the TDDM is included in there. So it's going to be very, very helpful for pursuing other things, other degrees as I continue. And I finished my degree a while back ago, so it's been a while since I've done any testing. So it's going to be challenging, but I felt like this is going to help me to continue to even acquire my PE in the future.
Oh, very cool. Chris, what made you decide to pursue your RCDD?
Well, I had my own business at one time, and we were doing some military work, and that's when the military really started kind of pushing the RCDD back in the 90s. Of course, now RCDD is a requirement in UFC 3580-1. You have to have RCDDs do the test plans and sign off on any design work for any large projects. So when I came back from overseas, the company I was working for, we were primarily doing military and industrial work. And therefore, I needed to have it. There was a requirement that the contracts for the Air National Guard, the Army, and the Navy were requesting us have those, have an RCDD. And we had other RCDDs on staff, but they were being required for project managers. And I was brought in as a project manager to set up the project management office. And they're like, you need to go get your RCDD, get it now. So I went through and got it. And I know you had a question there about scholarships. BICSI doesn't currently have any scholarships for that. And I know how expensive it is because I paid for mine out of my own pocket. It's not an inexpensive credential to get. But as I said, the money that I spent for myself on it, it has well paid me back, probably 1,000-fold easy. I mean, I could probably sit down and go calculate it back over the last, 11, 12 years that I've had it. And it has definitely been more than worth what I put into it as far as time and money.
Very cool. So yeah, I hear a common theme amongst everybody tonight. The job required it for that position. My company needed it so I could respond to bids. My path was a little different. I mean, I was an estimator at the time, and even though my job did not require an RCDD, I knew what it was. I knew people were getting it, but at the time I was a young father of 3 children, and I was like, I don't have time for this. And then what happened was a person that I know, I won't call him a friend, but a person I know got his RCDD. And I'm like, if that guy can get his RCDD, I can get it. And that's what me decided to pursue it and go get it. And I tell you what, the only regret I have is, why did I wait so long?
Yeah.
Why did I wait so long? That was my biggest regret. Okay, next question for the group. And how much time do you dedicate to study each week? Jeff, we'll start back off with you again.
So I think it kind of depended on the chapter we were reading, really, or the section that we were reading through. Typically, it was about probably 2 to 3 hours a week of kind of going through stuff and trying to a lot of it was reading bits and pieces as I had time, and then having to go back and kind of reread it, some of it again, just so it all made sense. But it was about anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks, or 2 to 3 hours per week for me.
Gotcha. Hussein, how much time do you spend studying? Is he talking? Can't tell. We'll come back to you, Hussein. Carlos, how much time do you spend studying?
Each week, I mean, it does depend, like Jeff said. Mostly after work, I read for about 2 hours each day. If I didn't get to it, if I had a busy schedule during the weekend, sometimes 8 hours. Reading over the 70 pages that we had to do a week, which was very helpful. But also spend time researching topics within that chapter. So yeah, about 8 hours a week.
Nice. Chris, do you remember? I know you said 18 months, but do you remember how much time a
Oh.
week?
I typically spend at least an hour every night. And then I would spend my lunches studying, because I would take a chapter out of the TDMM and I would carry it around with me and study when I would get a chance, especially if I was flying somewhere. That was a great opportunity to study on the plane, take a couple chapters and read through them. And then I would study anywhere from 6 to 8 hours on the weekend, depending on what was going on at the time.
Yeah, I did kind of the same thing. Again, like I mentioned, I had 3 small children at the time. And I told them, look, for the next 6 months, when Daddy comes home from work, I'm going to go to my office. I'm going to close the door. Just consider me still at work. So I would spend 2 hours every night. But I did the same thing you did, Chris. I wrote cards while I was driving to work, because I had a guy ride with me. I had him grilling me while I'm driving to work. When I would speak into a cassette tape and I'd play that on the radio. I mean, it was total immersion. It still took me 2 times to get past that test. Now, with a commitment like this, there's always life gets in the way, work gets in the way. Let's talk about hurdles, right? Because that's, like I said, I started off with 55. We were down to 5. So it stops a lot of people. Jeff, what kind of hurdles do you have, and how do you recommend overcoming them?
My biggest hurdle just to my study time is just, like you said, life. I've got two kids that are in sports, and have been this entire time. We've been trying to get through the study group here. So it's just trying to balance time, around them, time with my work. My job does take a lot of time as well out of my day. But it also just trying to find, the time to get the study in. And that's kind of right now why I'm at the 2 to 3 hours a week, is that, that's what I've been able to break in. And a lot of times it's a lot of late nights, trying to read through some of the stuff later in the evening after things have settled down and people have gone to bed at night. So I have a feeling, as I'm starting to get, prepped now after we've been through this and now starting to buckle down and get ready, for the test, it's going to be a little bit more as well, trying to hit that finish line. So
yeah, I don't know about you guys, but with me, evening time is not the best time for me to try to read and absorb something, because usually I'm already spent. So to me, that would be a hurdle. Even though I did my reading at night, I would honestly tell people, look, if you're going to do this, do it while your brain is fresh. Get up a little bit extra early, make that your habit. Like some people get to go early, go to the gym. Instead of going to the gym, get your breakfast, get your coffee, and then spend your time reading while your brain is fresh and you can absorb better. Hussein, what kind of hurdles do you have?
Jeff said it's it's the life gets on the way. It's like if you got kids, that's definitely it's on the way. Plus, if you work for yourself too, because my schedule is fixed. I don't work like certain hours. Like a fixed, just like regular job. The daytime also be like working at night overnight. That could continue for a week. It's like very difficult. By the time you want to come in and sit and read, and just like Chris said, if it really kind of your brain has difficulty kind of picking up and continue. So that is the main thing. If I can fit just a standard time every single day, it's definitely going to make it a lot easier.
Gotcha. Carlos?
Yeah, I know when I started out back in February, a lot of sleepless nights. I have a 10-month-old right now. So that was a big hurdle. I have a 3-year-old as well. And on top of that, fiance and I are planning for a wedding. So that's kind of tough in there too. On top of all the stuff I have to do for work, demanding clients, and they need all the work done yesterday. So that was my biggest hurdle.
Yep.
And time to actually sit down and close myself in my room and say, okay, guys, I got to sit down and read.
And not feel guilty about that. I had a big problem with that, right? Because I like I said, I come home and I close myself in that door, and I knew my wife, who'd been taking care of the kids all day long, I was asking her to watch them again for another 2 hours. And so, thank God that she was with me for the whole process. And and was the wind underneath my wing, because I couldn't have done it without her. As much as I put in work into it, and she put as much work into it as I did to help make sure that even though I did still have some of the hurdles that you guys spoke about, it didn't impact me as much. Chris, what kind of hurdles did you have?
I will agree with what you said, Chuck. If it wasn't for my wife and the sacrifices she made, there is no way I would have been able to get through it. I had 2 toddlers at the time, and work, travel. Most of the time I was gone, traveling all the time. So when I was home, it was, I'm there for a limited amount of time, and I'm spending part of that time studying. So same issues, it's life gets in the way. That's why it took 18 months. My plan was 12, and then it got expanded out just because of major project happening and everything else that was going on, and then having young kids and a wife and all those wonderful things that go along with it. But it can be done. It's just, like I said, I've always said this: get a plan, work the plan. If you need to, adjust the plan.
Yep. Yeah, I kind of do the same thing when because I get asked all the time, Chuck, give me some advice from our RCDD, and I say, look, here's what worked for me. It may not work for you, but it worked for me. Pick a date, apply, pay for the exam. Now you're locked in.
Yep.
Now you're locked in. Make it painful for you to get out of this. Right now you're locked in, because if you don't do it, you lost money. Now you got a certain amount of days. Divide those number of days into the number of pages. Now you know how much you have to read every night and study every night, and it's a plan. You just it's like there's an old project management analogy. How do you eat an elephant? Right?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. Exactly right. There's a lot of online resources out there that help people for the RCD program. Some good, some not so good. Jeff, what kind of online resources do you rely upon to help your journey?
A lot of it's just been, looking through, searching, kind of like Carlos was saying, looking at different things, researching different topics. A lot of YouTube, videos to understand a certain topic if I have a hard time going through it. But as far as just kind of my method for studying, though, too, it's always been just kind of the old school, like you were talking, the highlighter, and the book. I've got the highlighter right here to prove it. So, just going through, looking through all the pages, marking everything that I think needs to be, remembered, and then again going back through that again the next time. So,
yep. Hussein,
a lot of online resources. I mainly use the TDMM. There's a lot of information in there. It broke down the study. You have we read 70 pages. We can discuss and scenarios and things. Sometimes we have to come up with resources. So anything, I go into a sort of project or some sort of design, I bring it up. That would be or the resource I will look at. But I don't have an online thing that I go in. Kind of broke it down. It was really good. Reading 70 pages. That kind of put us almost this is to come up with it. A good mental attitude and know what we're talking about. And it just kind of read and prepared and
Yep. Carlos, have you found any good online resources, and how do they help you?
Not just because I'm on the show, but Let's Talk Cabling has helped me. It really has. If I'm driving to work, I'll throw on the podcast and just immerse myself in topics that Chuck has been talking about. So that's been a great resource. On top of looking at stuff on YouTube, there's a lot of great resources out there on YouTube for a lot of topics. So that's what I've been using.
Well, I don't want to make this into a Let's Talk Cabling, pat on the back kind of thing. I certainly appreciate it, because I do the show for people just like you. Chris, what kind of online resources are you aware of? Because you're in a little bit different position, because you and I have our RCDDs.
So there were some online resources back when I got mine. And then there were other organizations that taught classes, and I took some of those, and I say I was less than impressed with them. What I have found with online resources is it's that organization or person's take on how they see the TDMM. And the biggest thing that I've found with some of them is they don't give the correct answer.
Right.
A lot of times they're using an outdated version, and they're just trying to recycle questions or things of that nature. So, I always tell people, be careful about what online resources that you use. BICSI has some great resources now. Boy, I wish I'd had their test prep class back when I was studying for the test, because it's got a lot of good information in there. And in May of next year, myself and Keith Johnson, we're actually going to hold a virtual instructor-led training class on studying for the RCDD, and then some of the concepts that people really have difficulty grasping. We're going to be doing that. So, BICSI's got a lot of good resources, but when it boils down to it, all the answers are in the TDMM.
Yep. Yeah, it's like anything on the internet. The internet can be a great resource. It can also be a great hindrance. You have to evaluate where that source of information is coming from. You got to be really super careful with that. And that's why when I do my study groups, that's why when I do them, I don't call myself a teacher. I call myself a facilitator. We're all on a journey together, because every time I go through that book, like I said, I'm always learning something new. All righty, so let's look in the future. Jeff, what are you going to do with your RCDD when you get it? How's it going to impact your life?
Well, as I kind of mentioned, for me, it's a requirement for my job. So I think it's already helped me, open my eyes and understand a lot of the stuff that I deal with at my job today, and understand why things are done a certain way too, after reading through a lot of this. So, I think it's just going to give me a better overall understanding of what we do and kind of how to better our processes and some of our design and stuff like that, and make our place that much better. So
let me ask you this as a follow-up question. I'll get to the other guys in just a second. In being in this in the studying for your RCD now, have you found it's already helped you in your job?
Absolutely. Yeah.
The same. What about you? Same questions.
What is it the RCDD going to do for me? What I'm going to do with it? I'm waiting to see what's the RCDD going to do for me. But I find me a lot. It already did by reading the TDMM alert stuff. It's in content. I'm just waiting to see, when we get the certification, we'll see what happens.
Yep. What about you, Carlos?
Yeah, it was not necessarily required for my job, but it is going to help. And to that point that it was irrelevant, yes, every single week, every single chapter, I saw something in my job like, wow, I'm studying this. Like now, like I could talk smartly about it and know what I'm actually talking about. And it's also gonna give my job's quality on the subject.
Yeah, it definitely gives you a better sense of understanding and more confidence as you're going through, because now, before you might have kind of been able to figure out what they might have been talking about, but now you have the confidence and, oh yeah, I know what this is because we're reading about this, right? Chris, what about you?
I'm living the dream. I got my RCD. I've been in the industry for 29 years. It'll be 30 in March of next year. So I've been around for a long time, and being able to work for BICSI and give back to the community that's done so well by me. I'm living the dream right now. So it's been great. The RCDD helped me get to this position. Starting as an instructor for BICSI and then moving up to managing our partner programs. So it's been great.
Yeah, you stole my thunder. I was waiting for somebody else to say that, but they didn't. I'm hoping that those who, especially these gentlemen here in front of us, after you get your RCD and after the dust gets time to settle, you start thinking about how you can pay it back to the industry, right? You can do it. You can do it like Chris is doing. You can also do it by volunteering on any one of the BICSI committees, on the standards committees. And you'll find, my dad always used to say, in knowledge you learn, and learning knowledge you teach, and teach you learn. So if you keep immersed in it, it's going to make you even better, even after you get your RCD. Because the RCD is not the end of the road. That's just the first hurdle. And you got to keep going after that. Any final thoughts for anybody that you might want to say to inspire somebody who's thinking to maybe pursue their RCDD, or they're having problems because it seems such a big hurdle to overcome? I'll let anybody answer that.
Don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Just stick with it. And again, if you don't pass, don't take that as you're not able to do it. I'll share a quick story. There was a gentleman that I knew. This was before I came to BICSI. We actually took a test prep class together, and we took the test afterwards, and he was not successful. And it took him 6 times before he passed the test, but he was determined he was going to pass it, and he did. I always joke. I always told him, I think that you got a chance to see every single one of the test questions, and that's why you passed. But don't give up. Just don't give up. If you're not successful, don't worry. There are plenty of people who are not successful taking the exam the first time. Lots of them that are out there. So just study, study, study.
Yep. Anybody else?
Yeah, I gotta say something. It's like when edition came out, I bought it like almost like when it first came out in 2020. So it wasn't a long time until we started this thing. I was not committed. But when we got into the group, formed again, like the study group, the second study group, we got really committed and we started reading. But if I can do it, anybody can do it, and it's definitely you don't stop. And I don't know if Chuck is going to end for study group 3, but it's definitely was an opportunity for us to kind of go. Definitely gave us a plus and definitely encouragement to kind of go. If it wasn't my own, I don't think I'll be able to do it that easily. It will take me maybe 2 years, 8 myself.
Right. There will be another study group. I got several people have asked in both TikTok and in the chat book. There will be another study group. It won't be until Q1 of next year, though, because the study group, for those who may not know, it's 24 weeks long. We do 70 pages every week. And so like I said, it's a grind, and it gets you in that book and gets you thinking. And it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the faint of heart. But you get access to me for 24 weeks. Not that I'm some super knowledgeable person, but it's a journey. We all go through together. I'm smarter than I was 24 weeks ago, even though it's the second time I've read that book. So, gentlemen, I appreciate each and everybody coming out tonight. And I'm hoping everybody who's watched this, who's either thinking about pursuing the RCDD, has said, yes, I want to do it now. Or those who are on that journey who are thinking, man, this is hard, this is difficult. Everybody goes through that. Everybody goes through that. So I appreciate everybody being here tonight. And guys, I thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Chuck, for having me back.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take
Chuck.
care, everybody.
Yes.
Until next time, everybody, knowledge is power.